This is for my English 1102 students. I apologize that this has got to be on my phone because unfortunately COD does not have Panopto, which enables me to do this so that you can see this better on the screen instead of me having my phone in front of the screen, so please bear with me. All right, so we're going to be skipping the source summaries assignment because it's redundant anyway, as just a formality, as I call it, the pre-annotated bib, because that's basically what it is. So let me talk about the annotated bib, which is due after spring break. Again, we're focusing mainly on your infographic right now because that's due this week. So I want you to concentrate on that. But in the meantime, let me talk about the annotated bib. So some of you said that you've already done annotated bibs before, but let's be clear that this is only on 2 of your sources. You don't have to do it if you chose 4 sources for your essay. You just have to do the annotated bib on 2 sources. So remember, the first thing to know with the annotated bib is that annotated bibliographies are single-spaced as opposed to everything else like essays that are usually double-spaced. Single-spaced is what I'm looking for. I'll also include on Blackboard an annotated bib checklist before spring break so that you could go over it and see that you've got everything correct. So remember that it's also Times New Roman 12-point font. All right, so for those of you who don't know what an annotated bib is, so an annotated bibliography is a list of cited sources about a particular topic in which each citation is followed by a brief annotation or discussion of the source. The annotation usually consists of just 1 paragraph. Notice that I put the due date, I pushed it back to Monday, April 6th, because this week was supposed to start individual conferences for your essay, but unfortunately, we're modifying a lot of things due to the pandemic and not seeing each other face to face. So each source discussed in the annotated bib will include both a citation and an annotation as follows. So the citation, as you know, should include the proper information in MLA format. This direction sheet will be available on Blackboard after I'm done lecturing and putting this up on YouTube and posting the link for you. So notice how this is the citation. See, it's last name, comma, first name, Gilbert, comma, Pam, and Easy Bib, or if you have your information from the library website. So again, if you plug it in to MLA format under the scroll guide, you'll be able to find it. Sorry about my cat in the background here. Yeah, that's great. So you'll be able to find the auto cite already done for you in the library website. All right, so your annotation is separated. This sounds confusing, so you'll see what the whole thing looks like in the example that I'll provide. And again, this cat needs to be quiet while I'm trying to talk to you guys. So the annotation is a brief paragraph followed by, the citation. So, following the citation. So obviously the citation is first. All right, so the first sentence of your paragraph is going to have the author's last name. You could have the full name or the last name, but you never want to refer to any author in academic work by just their first name because that's informal and that's not considered academic. All right, so you want that information in that first sentence. So you want to say, for example, Pam Gilbert's article is about. So that's how you want to do that. I'll show you the example in a minute here. So your evaluation is then going to be the source's credibility. So that's where I had you look up the information about who is the author, right? Their credentials. You're going to then assess the usefulness of the information to see, is this going to be useful to my research? And who do I feel is the intended audience? So it's who do you think is the intended audience based on what you've seen. Here's my example. So you'll see that Pam Gilbert's article, I've separated it into 3 sections to make sure that I have all of the correct information, but that's not what the final draft is going to look like of this. So I'm going to take all 3 sections and put them all together to form one paragraph, and I'll show you that on the next page. So first I'm going to summarize the article. So you see how I've annotated it, right? So I've got my citation. Now I'm going to put information about what I know that this is about. So Gilbert, say I just used her last name here, provides some insight into the concept of voice and textual interpretation and points to a need to move away from the search for voice in reading and blah, blah, blah. So that's basically my summary. Now I'm going to assess the information. This is where I'm not only going to give you her credentials, but I'm also going to decide, is this source biased or is it objective? Pam Gilbert is a professor of the School of Education at James Cook University in Australia. Her ideas seem to disagree with those who believe in a dominant voice in writing, but she presents an interesting perspective on the topic. So when I did this in grad school, this was for something that I did for a paper that I was working on. So I needed to show why, even though the source sort of showed a biased viewpoint, why it was still valid to use in my research. So that's why I explained it the way that I did in this example. And then finally, the reflection. This is where I'm going to talk about who do I think is the intended audience. Well, after reading her article and all the formalities involved, I decided this source is intended for English instructors and graduate students in composition theory classes, like myself at the time that I wrote this. Although the source is older, now I have to describe how it's useful in my research. It is still useful in my research because we need to look at both sides of the argument concerning voice, and her hesitation towards its use is still prevalent with many theorists today. All right, sounds like I know it's a boring topic, but I had to write about it in grad school. So anyway, this is the annotated bib itself here. So what I did was I put on top example of a full annotated bibliography using two sources. What it should say on the top of your page is annotated bibliography. So then you're going to have your two sources. Notice that I have the sources in alphabetical order. That's exactly how they have to be. If you turn it into me after spring break and they're not in alphabetical order, I'm not going to give you a 0 on it, but I am going to turn it back into you ungraded, telling you to redo it, because that's 5 points off of a 25-point assignment, and you don't want that just because you didn't fill in that necessary detail by just alphabetizing your sources. This is single spaced, not double spaced, not 1.5 spaced, single spaced. Notice that there is a space between the citation and the annotation paragraph. So what I did with the Pam Gilbert article was I took that summary, right, and I put that together with the other two parts. So you see now I have the summary, now I have the information here about her credentials and the intended audience and all of this information that I went over above. And then I did the same thing with the second article. So if your annotated bibliography looks exactly like my example on the last page of that assignment sheet, that is what you are shooting for. And then you're going to start to, over spring break, start to work on a partial draft of your essay, so that instead of individual conferences face-to-face, unfortunately, that's not going to work out. What we're going to have to do instead, sorry, I'm correcting this as we speak. So it's, I'm saving this file for you. I'm going to load it up on Blackboard for you. All right, so what you need to do first and foremost is finish the infographic assignment and work on the annotated bibliography. So again, you'll have extra time to work on this. You'll have all the time in the world during spring break. And then in the middle of the week, I'll tell you what we need to be working on. Not the full essay yet, because obviously you've got other classes and you've got your own lives to worry about while all of this craziness is going on. So let's get this started. And if you have any questions, please email me. Talk to you soon.